Welcome, beautiful people. Welcome to another epic episode of From Bloke to Woke. Lost count of actually how many episodes we're up to now, but I think it's definitely over the 50s. But yeah, welcome. I've got an incredible man joining us today, this morning, and he's currently living over in the States. He's spent 19 years working with men, working with special elites forces, Olympic gold medal athletes. He's got a degree in psychology, master's degree, and so many other things. I had a conversation with him before we jumped on. I was like, wow, you are probably the most qualified brother that I've had on to speak, which I'm so excited about. And yeah, he's just an amazing dude and ready to bring him on and give some epic value for the men and women in here as well, and what it truly means to be a man and his definition. And it's going to be epic. So guys, as you jump on, please share this out to any men or women who feel could benefit, and drop in the comments what you are most grateful for. Just going to bring brother Stefanos. Hey Emma, how you doing, beautiful? Tom, how are you, my man? Alisa.
Hey.
Hey brother. Have you got your earphones now?
Yeah, I can get them in. Yeah, no problem.
Sorry. You just get the echo. It's happening. That's all.
Sure, that's a little bit better. Yeah.
Much better.
Cool.
Good to see you again, brother. How you feeling?
Too, man. Yeah, good, man. Excited.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's good having that pre-brief chat, just knowing a bit more where you're at. And yeah, it's, as I said just before, it's like, wow, like you've done a lot of work. You've done a lot of things. You've seen a lot of stuff. And yeah, just really, really excited to dive deep into your story, and not only your own personal story, but I guess some of the stories that you may have helped men to work through. I guess, being in that space of elite forces and preparing men for, I guess, war in essence. Could have seen some really dark shit, and really excited to see those parts. And I don't think we've really gone into that kind of depth yet on any of these interviews. Yeah. So I'm really, really excited, and I can just see by your face that there's some deep stuff in there. So you've seen a lot. I can just see straight through your eyes, man. And yeah, for anyone joining, actually, we'll just start with a bit of an intention, brother. And yeah, my intention is just to really dive deep and to showcase you and the the really important messages that need to come through from not only your story, but also from all the collective stories of the men that you've heard with, and bring up the things that are most going to benefit us to hear as men and as a collective to really up level. And yeah, would be my intention.
Yeah.
Is that you, brother?
Yeah, my intention would be to serve you and this audience as best I can. Just show up very presently, be very open and honest and transparent in my communication and the message as well. Whatever nook and cranny or nooks and crannies we go down in terms of the conversation, to really explore that to its fullest, and that would really be my intention.
Amazing, brother. Thank you. And for anyone tuning in who hasn't seen From Bloke to Woke before, basically the concept is what the name says, From Bloke to Woke, and basically, really finding the contrast of these really inspiring men and dark stories that they've, the things that they've been through, and finding the most powerful moments and pivotal points of change in their lives, so they can really give back and give guidance to those that are struggling now, and really giving as much value to others from their own story as possible. and yeah, just their journeys of awakenings into becoming the man who they are today. And hey Blake, how you doing, brother? And so yeah, brother, I'd love for you to, like I said, really go into the contrast and go through sequentially, the most pivotal points of change in your life, and also for anyone who's tuning in, feel free to drop some questions in there as we go. There will be some questions that come up, and we'll do our best to come back and answer them. And yeah, at the end, we'll do a bit of a Q&A and just flow with what wants to come through. And yeah, what's the messages that are really deep on your heart that you feel to share? And yeah, that's clear, brother. I'd love for you to take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So many of us experience hurt and pain, and we go through turmoil and we go through difficulty and we experience challenge. I'm not new to that. You're not new to that. No one, or very few watching this, would be new to that, would be new to the experience of discomfort and difficulty. I really feel that adversity for us, it's an initiation and it's an invitation into helping us step into our greatness. And so when we look at men and we look at the masculine paradigm, men and the masculine, and they're not mutually exclusive, but that men thrive on challenge. I feel though in our society that challenge has become probably more distorted, and it's become really, it's a different type of challenge, and that challenge has become unhealthy. And so we're finding that we're seeking challenge because it's something deep within us as men. We thrive on it, we grow, and growth is so attractive. Expansion is so attractive. Yet I feel we're seeking the wrong or the misaligned challenge. And we've very much drifted from our core, we've very much drifted from our own sense of physicality and masculinity. We've very much drifted from our heart center. We've very much drifted from this pro-social being that we were to now experiencing vast and deep isolation. And that's one of the issues that I experience with men is isolation. I felt that so much during my life from a child, from a little boy. I felt isolated. I felt I don't want to say depressed in the clinical sense, but I was depressed in my being. I was restricted in the way I expressed myself because I grew up in a volatile, violent, physically violent, emotionally abusive household. And so behaving in me, just being me, was very scary because I didn't know how that would be met and how that would be received. And so I had to move through a lot of pain in order to actually get to who am I in the world. And it was a lot of trial and error, and a lot of it was unconscious, and it wasn't even trial and error. It was just working or operating from the coping strategies that I implemented as a young child that really didn't serve me as an adult. And again, our greatest voids can become our greatest values. And so what we did not receive sometimes as children, we seek for in adulthood. And for me, I thrive on connection. I thrive on that connectivity, that intimacy, that wanting to be seen. And for so long, it was coming from a very unhealthy place because my void was isolation and being lonely and being alone and being segregated. And that's how I felt internally. And so when I would pursue that in my social environment, I would pursue it from a place of desperation and neediness and codependency. And as I grew into teenage years and early adulthood, that transmuted into aggression, hyperaggression, anger, frustration, agitation. I was violent, not with my partners, but I was violent in the world, on the streets. I was fighting a lot. I was almost out of control because I couldn't self-regulate what I was feeling because I'd suppressed so much of it. And I see this common theme in men so often. They suppress so much of their feelings, whether it be anger, whether it be frustration, sadness, fear. It's always suppressed, and it goes one of two ways. They either become very fearful in the world, passive, and they retract, and they become meek in their demeanor, or they become hyper aggressive. they outlash, they're on the back foot, they're always attacking first. If an argument is, if someone disagrees with them, they're loud, they're obnoxious, they're intimidating, they're sarcastic. I was all of that. I was that, and I was the passive. I was a passive kid. I was weak and meek as a child. I was bullied a lot. I at some point even became a bully. I went through these cycles, and so many men do. And so what I see in men is this sense of loneliness and aloneness in the world. This lone wolf mentality needs to leave us. So many men don't feel they have anywhere to turn. I've got a group, a private Facebook group called The Conscious Man. And in this group, so many men share, there's over 1,000 members there, and so many men share so much of the same truth. I feel isolated. I feel alone, amongst many other issues that we can talk about soon, but I feel isolated. I feel alone. I don't have brothers that I can depend on. I don't have friends that I can really reach out to. I don't have anyone to talk about men's stuff or to even talk about stuff, life stuff, full stop. And so there's some of the big pain points that I witness is that isolation, that aloneness, that loneliness, the inability to deal with emotions because we haven't really been taught how to emote correctly. We haven't been taught that emoting is healthy and how to do it from a healthy masculine posture.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for touching on all that. And yeah, it's a big struggle, isn't it? And the big thing that I see is, you know, and I love for you to touch on as well, like after, you know, your journey of, you know, doing all this work with all these men and your own journey yourself before getting into the men's work. You said before that we got into on the call before this, it was for you trying to really define what it means for you to actually be a man, and those things that you just said before was, I guess, what would you say your definition of what it truly means to be a man after all your experiences?
Yeah, it's a massive question, man. There's two. It's a beautiful question. It's not one that's not answerable. There's part of it has an objective response, and part of it is more subjective. And so there's two questions that I hear when people say, "What does it mean to be a good man?" Yeah, that's one of the questions. And what does it mean to be good at being a man is a separate question. And the former, what does it mean to be good to be a good man, is essentially a subjective cultural disposition. And it's really defined by your in-group, it's defined by your primary peer group, it's defined by your dominant culture that you associate with, and the values that you hold within yourself and that you deem to be true both consciously and unconsciously. And so what I could say it means to be a good man, and I'll give you some examples, absolutely, I won't veer off the question, may differ to what you may think, or someone in the Middle East may think, or someone in Southeast Asia may think, or someone in Africa may think, or someone in Argentina may think is a good man. There's so many variables that feed into that construct and that concept. For me, what does it mean to be a healthy masculine man is firstly, there's a system by Jack Donovan, he's an author, and he calls this system as 4 tactical virtues. I expand that and I go one more and I say there's 5 tactical virtues. So his tactical virtues are strength, courage, mastery, and honor. I say there's also connectedness as part of that, because when we look at anthropological studies, when we look at evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology, we see that we are pro-social beings. We actually thrive more on collaboration as opposed to competition, although competition does exist. And competition exists within in-groups and it exists outside of groups as well. But let's not go down that conversation for a moment. But we're collaborative beings, generally speaking. That's how we thrive in our dominant in-group. And so we can extend that to Earth if we want. Good luck. We're not quite there yet. We don't have the consciousness to actually really believe in and hold true at a collective level unity consciousness. Our brains can't fathom 7.5 billion people and intimacy with 7.5 billion people for the most of us. And so we have to chunk it down and go back to our small groups. And so those 5 tactical virtues, strength, mastery, courage, honor, and connectedness, for me, really define, I really resonate with these tenets. They define what it means to be good at being a man. And so we can unpack that. We can unpack each tenet a little bit later or soon, but let me go into being a good man. And so what it means to be a good man, again, is very relative. And so let me take an extreme example. So we can look at someone that's a suicide bomber, whatever religion or culture or spiritual practice they adhere to, they believe that for them, if they are virtuous if they're strapping, and this is a very simplistic example, strapping a bomb to their body, walking into a crowded area and allowing that bomb to go off, killing themselves and hurting and or killing many other people. And the in-group, the dominant in-group that they are a part of would say that he's a good, virtuous man. He's a healthy man. He's doing this for his God. He's doing this from such a good place. He's giving to the world. He's freeing the world. And then you and I won't speak for yourself, but I'll speak for me. I would look at that and I'd say, man, that's disappointing. That's an act of weakness. That's an act of passivity. That's an act of ignorance. That is not what it means to be a healthy man in any capacity. And so we can have very different ideas of what it means to be a good man. And so for me, I'll give you a couple of principles of what I think it means to be a healthy man in contemporary times. One of them is willingness. Now, this isn't, again, exclusive to men only. This is for every sentient human being, is willingness. And I define willingness by our ability and our yearning, or so much more our yearning and then our ability through movement, through action and momentum, to actually want to place effort into life. We are willing to look at our pains. We are willing to look at our fears. We are willing to look at who we are as men. We are willing to look at our shadow behavior. We are willing to look at our past. We are willing to admit that we're wrong. We're willing to admit that we need assistance, that we need help. We're willing to acknowledge parts of us that we've previously suppressed. We're willing to celebrate our joys. There's a willingness that comes with life, that we're open. There's an openness that's associated with a willingness. There's open-mindedness and an open-heartedness to do and be new things. So willingness plays a massive role in my construct of healthy masculinity, because previously the masculine or the unhealthy masculine can be associated with rigidity, and it can be associated with constriction in its unhealthy expression. In its healthy expression, it's assertive. In its healthy expression, it's directional. In its healthy expression, it understands life and responds to life as opposed to reacts to life. When we're willing to respond as opposed to react. Therefore, we don't limit ourselves and become rigid, and we expand ourselves and become really fucking open. And that, to me, that's why willingness is a massive construct or characteristic or posturing within a healthy masculine paradigm. I'll stop there because you may have some questions you want to comment, so because I can keep going, obviously.
Well, keep the stream with that in mind. But I'd love to also tap into, some of those things that you were mentioning beforehand of what it means to be a good man. Was that the journey that you took yourself through before actually doing this work with men and all this stuff with men and war and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I was so for me, brother, like I said, I experienced what I perceived and that I interpreted, and it was a very painful upbringing. And there was some beautiful times in there as well. I really do remember some beautiful times, even with my father, with my parents, and particularly my grandparents, which was a beautiful reprieve. And there were some great times. There was a real lot of painful times and separation there as well. And so I took a lot of that. And in the early years of my life, I was very, very quiet and very passive and very withdrawn from the world. Yet I was so curious and so explorative. Like, I wanted to know so much about what was happening in my world, so much. Yet I was repressed by my own self and by my environment with respect to speaking that truth. And then I hit an age where I was tired of being bullied, and I was tired of being so quiet, and I had all this energy and power in me, and I couldn't give it to the world. And I got tired of that. I hit rock bottom as a young person. I wasn't understood. I didn't feel that people really knew me. And I thought, well, I've had enough of this. And I went the other way. I went the other extreme. And I became hyper aggressive and again, agitated and frustrated, very loud in the world. And that caused me to deal with a new set of issues, because I was being loud, because I was being flamboyant, so to speak. I was being abrupt and rude. It attracted different attention. So I had to learn how to navigate that as well. And then I would take myself in violent situations and aggressive situations, and constantly be in that fight, flight, or freeze. And for me, the answer 99.9% of the time was fight. And so that's what I did, because I was so passive in my life. And then I took all of that anger and that frustration, that fire, and I brought that into my relationships. Now, I wasn't physically abusive in my intimate relationships. I was verbally abusive. I was emotionally abusive. I didn't pay attention. I neglected. I was arrogant. I was egoic. I was unfaithful in my relationships. And I wasn't coming from a place that I'm better than anyone else. I was coming from a place of deep wounding that was unaddressed. Now, that's not an excuse. That's a reason. There's no excuse to my behavior. I'm deeply remorseful for the actions that I took during my life, and I've learned a lot from it as well because I've chosen to. And that's part of the willingness piece. I would tie it back to the willingness piece. I was willing to look at my quote unquote failings. I was willing to look at my pain and my fear, and I was willing to look at myself and say, Steph, I don't know if I want to be, this is not who you are. I don't want to be this person anymore. I had to have these very powerful conversations with myself, and that only really happened 6 years ago. I've been doing deep work studying Eastern mysticism and even Vedanta and the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible and the Quran and all these religious texts and spiritual texts from a young age, and I submerged myself not so much in reading but learning. Part of that was reading, part of that was conversation, part of that was watching and audios and all of that stuff. And I submerged myself in that, but it never really sunk through into the depths of my being because I was still repressing so much and ignoring so much within me. And so until I became willing to really go deep, and I made a commitment, and commitment's another key principle for me of what it means to be a healthy masculine man. Can you be committed to what you know is true for you? Can you be committed to the impact you want to and are going to and are having in the world? Can you be committed to your purpose? Can you be committed to your values? Can you be committed to what's important to you? Can you be committed to reverence, respect? Can you be committed to these things? And so until I got really committed to doing the work, going deep, exploring at any cost, I said to myself, I'm either going to physically commit suicide, and I had that thought many times, not only in the last 6 years, but before that as well. I'm either going to commit suicide because it's too overwhelming, and I'm actually at peace with that. I'm either going to end up in a mental asylum, and I'm at peace with that, or I'm going to break through this, be someone that I've never been before, but have always been at the same time, but never really been it in the world consistently. And I'm going to have to take this message and share it with the world because of who I am, how I present, and how important that is to me, and how I wish to serve others as well. And very, very, by the grace of something, whether it be God, the divine, a higher source, whether it be my higher self, whatever it is, source consciousness, I am on that third path. And it doesn't mean I don't have work to do. It doesn't mean that my work is over. Our work doesn't stop until we die. You and I are having this conversation now. You and I will leave this conversation. We'll either learn something from it and grow, and we'll open up another door within the chasms of our spirit. And we'll open that door, and there'll be a big room in there. And we'll go, oh, that's a room I didn't know about. Okay, well, looks like I've got a bit more work to do. It doesn't always have to be traumatic. It doesn't always have to be deep and painful. But it's something there, and that's growth, right? That's we live in this skin suit. We live in this 3D realm, this realm of duality and polarity. We're growing. That's the beauty of it, right? And so, doesn't mean I don't have work to do. It just means that I've cleared a lot of my clutter, and I'm very inspired by doing that because I spent so many years not doing that, and I believe it's very possible for every human being. We all take different paths. Mine was one of solace and solitude and pain, and I really went to places that no human being I don't feel should go unless they can really pull themselves out. That doesn't need to be everyone's path to that extent. That was mine for various reasons that I'm very understanding of and why. It helps me connect to others and bond with others, and it helps me serve in the way that I serve in terms of the presence that I have. The presence that I choose to carry, should I say, and we all have presence in our own way. Presence as well is another virtue of what it means to be a healthy man. And presence really is derived from our ability to hold space and our ability to show up, these terms that we use in these neo-spiritual terms. And when we debunk them, it really means that we've done the work, that we're not triggered by others, that we see ourselves and we see ourselves in others, and that we're willing to be present to what the needs of others are as well. And beyond that, we've really done that deep work on ourselves, and we are able to hold our presence in truth and alignment, in virtuosity, in other words, in an adaptable way, in a robust way, with respect to our truth and honoring that in the world and giving that. And that's part of presence as well.
Beautiful. And yeah, I think you just answered the question that I had in mind to throw at you, which was, oh, not quite, but I'd love to know, like, what was the kind of most difficult thing that you've had to face and work through? And with that, do you feel that it is important for the development of a man to really look at those deepest parts of self to move forward as well?
Yeah, I'll answer the second question first. Yes, an absolute resounding yes. We have to understand that men of the past, our ancestors, our brothers, our brethren, our tribes people, we stand on the shoulders of giants today. And not only men, of course, but beautiful women also. They had extensive and multiple rites of passage. Not all, but most Native American Indians, after war or after any form of conflict, would go on sacred medicine journeys, or they would go on rites of passage, or disappear in solitude out in the desert or wherever they were, and connect back to Mother Earth and connect back to their own soul and their own spirit and their own self, because they felt that war would take away part of them before they can be assimilated and integrated back into community, back into their tribe, because they wouldn't be healthy. And so this was continuous, and that's just one example of many. Walkabout in terms of in the Aboriginal people, Indigenous people of Australia, again, a common rites of passage amongst many in Aboriginal cultures, in different subcultures within Australia. But we've had these rites of passages where we've learned to connect to ourselves and know ourselves. We've met the dark night of our own soul. We've met the darkness that resides within, and we've made peace with it. We understand it, we feel it, we know it. There's no surprises. We're not driven by unconscious clutter and bullshit. We don't have that in modernity. We don't have those rites of passage. That's a big project that I'm working on, is bringing that to young people in contemporary times, is that rite of passage and what that actually looks like. And there are many great organizations that are doing that. I'm part of an organization here in the US, Sacred Sons. I'm part of I was part of another organization, the Mankind Project, doing amazing things. And so there are great organizations out there, great organizations. And can we go beyond that? Can we really? So to answer your question, yes, like we need these rites of passage. Men need to explore the depth and the darkness of who they are, so they don't bring that to relationship. They don't bring that to earth. It's evident in the way we relate to earth, brother. It's so fucking evident with the way that we relate to Mother Earth. The way we extract and distribute resources so carelessly. That's a masculine. When you just look at men and women in industry and corporations, the vast majority of employees and the leadership are men. It's a masculine driven model that's turned on its head, and it's unhealthy in its expression. It's not that men are unhealthy or the masculine is unhealthy, not at all. It's the way it's presented in today's world that's unhealthy. That's too extreme. That's why it's unhealthy. Men aren't unhealthy by nature. Masculine's necessary. You can't have the feminine without the masculine. It's the necessary parts of each other. And so, yes, we need to do the work so we don't bring that to others. We don't bring that to community. And I've forgotten, I was deep in it, but I've forgotten the first question.
That's all good. Yeah, so the first question was, what was kind of a reframe of the second question, really. What was the most difficult thing that you've had to go through for yourself? And what are some of the things that you think your life would be like, or the traits that you might still have if you hadn't have gone down that path?
Yeah, there's so many that I've faced in my life so I'll go broad, then I'll go detailed. So the most difficult thing for me was, at the beginning, I was facing my own mortality, that I thought the pain that I was in was literally going to kill me. And what would that mean? I thought, I don't want to die. I'm not ready to die. I wasn't scared of death. I just didn't want to die. But I thought the pain was so intense, the psycho-emotional, spiritual pain, the disconnect was so intense, I thought I was going to die. And once I got over that mortality thing, it's like, whatever, I don't really care if I die. And not so much I didn't care about me, I was at peace with it. it was then coming face to face with, wow, this is what my actions have actually done to people. That was very painful, very painful. It diminished my sense of self-worth. I felt so worthless, more than I ever had before. Basically coming into contact with all the shadow expressions and elements of self that I'd repressed for so long and hadn't come into contact with, such as the worthlessness, such as the loneliness and the aloneness, the sense of isolation, the not enoughness, not feeling enough, not being good enough, not being smart enough, being continuously feeling that I was wrong. I came face to face with all of this childhood stuff. And that was very, very challenging. And so what really triggered that about 6 years ago was a breakup that I had where I was unfaithful in that relationship, extremely unfaithful. And she found out. I didn't even have the courage to tell her. I wanted to tell her, like 3 months leading up to that, I was saying to myself, right, I've got to say this, I've got to say that, and I've got to just be free of this, and I've got to speak my truth. But I was too scared. And I just thought, no, there's the timing's not, excuses, right? And she found out, of course, everything unravels as it needs to. My behavior are her pain points, her behavior are my pain points, and we get to work through stuff. And that was a very painful time for me. That was the beginning of and the catalyst of my full opening into self. And it was coming face to face with those demons that I'd repressed for so long. And I went deep, brother. Like I went into counseling and psychology. And again, I'd done all of that before. But I went deep and properly into it. I went to spiritual healers, somatic healing, I spent great time in solitude, in nature, moving the body with a different intention, meditation, emotional, emotional expression, just so much. I went into so much of self, and that was a massive time for me of change, transformation, transmutation. But it was a very painful time initially. I came face to face with my own demons in very painful ways. Very painful ways.
Wow. Wow, just letting that sink for a bit. And yeah, I think, you're just sharing that is really, it's obviously not going to be the same for every man. Like there's different depths that we may have to go through to clear up that kind of thing. But it also gives us like a bit of a context of, what we actually have to go through to really bring out the parts of ourselves that we feel that are really ourselves, and finding those deep parts. And I guess there's a question that just come through, which was like, what, in your experience, what do you feel is the best way for a man who is, I guess, struggling and not knowing, what is the path that they have to go down to bring out those parts of themselves, and what can be the most effective?
Yeah. Brother, I experienced so much shame and so much guilt, and probably the shame was the hardest to deal with. And so many men feel shameful for their actions that they've taken in their life as young people, as boys, as men, or they feel so much shame for what's been done to them. They've internalized the actions of others, and they're in so much distress because of the shame that they feel. And what I would say to men, and let's go back to the 5 tactical virtues for a moment. Let's speak to connectedness. And all of the virtues, those 5 tactical virtues, they do not come to fruition. They are not expressed through man unless man is in group. Our self-identity as men was forged with other men. Yes, there was an element of comparison, but it wasn't so much comparing, oh, you're better than me, I'm better than you. It was more utility, and it was more function, and it was more, how can we work together as a cohesive team? And so all of that comes out when you're in a group of solid men that care about each other, that see each other, that want the best for each other and want the best for the group. The group's the most important thing, not the individual. the group. And so those mastery, courage, strength, honor, connectedness, it flourishes in that group setting. You know, we developed skills and mastery around securing the perimeter when we were hundreds of thousands of years ago, or 50,000 years ago, making certain stone carving tools, weapons, tending to our area, our designated area of living, whatever it was. We all had a skill set, we all had a contribution. Maybe you were the best warrior or the best hunter, or whatever it may be. And we complemented each other, and our self-identity was forged in group, in relation to each other. And we go back to isolation and aloneness. So many men miss that today. They don't have that today. And so what I say, to answer your question, the first thing I say is surround yourself with a group of brothers that you trust, that you respect, that you revere. Friends that you can lean on, that you can share with, that won't judge you, that will be compassionate, but that will also keep you in line and be fair and bring the best out of you. Maybe sometimes that's tough love, maybe it's not. But men that you can trust and know that you can express yourself, not to be justified in your actions if you've done quote unquote wrong, or if you have actually taken action that's not socially acceptable and that's not healthy and fair. Not that you'll be justified in that by your brothers, but that you'll be seen and you won't be judged. And then you'll be told, hey, that's not how we operate here. You need to fix this, and this is what you need to do. We need that support as men. We don't have it. We're so busy in our corporate jobs. We're so sedentary. We're so busy providing in this sense that we're working 12, 15, 16 hours a day when we don't need to because of social pressures, because we're pursuing status or monetary wealth or ego. Again, there's nothing wrong with wealth. There's nothing wrong with status. At what expense though? That's the issue. It's done in extremes in our society too often. And our self-worth is predicated on what we have and what we do and how others see us. And men feel the pain of that. And they isolate themselves in order to compete, to get the best they can for their family, or whatever they identify that with, or themselves. And at the expense of that, the trade-off is that they isolate themselves from true, meaningful friendships and intimate connection. And that's just not healthy for society, and it's not healthy for men.
Wow. All gold here, brother. Thank you so much for sharing that. Awesome. And there's a few other questions that I had here for you as well. And I wanted to open up for anyone who is also watching the replay or is live. If you do have any questions for yourself burning, we were just going through, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a good man, all sorts of different questions. And I'd love for you to go deeper into that as well, if you like.
What it means to be good at being a man, or what it means to be a good man?
Yeah, that one.
The first one?
First one, yeah.
What it means to be good at being a man?
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially it's adhering to those tactical virtues. So connectedness is one of them, right? And just, I think I just saw Connie just say, this is good for women to know. This is good for everyone to know if you align with it and resonate with it. Men's talk isn't just about men for men. It is largely about men, but it's for all of us. I had a client earlier and we were speaking about men's work, and I said to him, I'm very clear on my vision. I'm very clear on where I'm going and what I'm doing now and who I'm being now as well. And I serve men and women. I largely serve men at this point because I see there's a gap there, and men need to do the work. They need to catch up in certain areas. And it's not because they're not good enough. It's not because they're weak, and it's not because they're stupid or ignorant. It's because we haven't been taught. And we have a lot of catching up to do in certain areas. And so I know that my deep work is with men for a number of years, probably for a long time, relative to my lifespan. And it's also preparing men for co-educational work, for all people to come together. But men can't do that right now. We're not ready for that at a collective level. And so my fiance and I, we work deeply with couples, we work deeply with men and women as well, but we're moving towards bringing men and women in the same room and co-creating from that place. But men aren't quite ready for that yet. So I know I have a skill set, I have an intention, I have a passion, and I'm inspired by working with men. I know I need to do that work. I have to, it's my duty. And so we're really bringing that into how can we connect. But back to those tactical virtues, connectedness is so important. Get with men, because we've evolved that way. When we're talking about mastery, we're talking about mastering something and being really good at it. Whatever it is, a skill, learn new skills. As men, it's so important we learn new skills. We don't become complacent and sedentary. That is the worst thing that we can do, and that leads into strength. Our bodies are designed to move. We have to be strong. It doesn't mean you have to back squat 1,000 pounds or 500 kilos. It doesn't mean you've got to be the strongest guy in your community, your region, your country, your continent, the world. Not at all. It means carry physical prowess in your body. Be proud of your physical body. Know that you can take your body to the edge, to different edges, to extremes. Have confidence in your physicality. We need to do, again, adhering to these principles makes us literally more men, better men, more manly men. That mastery, learning new skills, using our hands, do that. I used to get so bored about doing handy stuff, and even though I worked as trades assistant when I was younger for extra money and all of that stuff, and I enjoyed it, it was okay, but it wasn't. Now I get more excited about, can I build something? Can I see? And I actively challenge myself in that space. The next thing for me is I want to build like weapons, but not to hurt people or to even hunt at this point, but to build eloquent bow and arrows, to sand back, to do it by hand, to learn just different crafts. Very important. Courage. Again, we live in such a safe place. Now, I'm not saying that, we need to start wars. That's not healthy. What I am saying is challenge yourself. Join a boxing club, join a jiu-jitsu club, join a Muay Thai club. Go trekking in the mountains, learn a new skill in the outdoors where you're being physical and you have to express courage. Have that conversation that's really tough, that you don't want to have, but you need to. Be courageous in that place. Speak your truth when you know that it's really hard for you to speak your truth. Be courageous. Go for that job interview that you should be going for, but you're too scared. Be courageous. So we have to practice courage. We have to move through fear and allow fear to be one of our greatest teachers. And we do that by being courageous and stepping through the fear and being with it as opposed to moving against it or ignoring it. And then honor comes really when strength and courage and connectedness and mastery come together, and we're honoring ourselves in that place. And we honor ourselves relative to our dominant peer group, and our part, not all, but part of our sense of self and our self-identity and who we are and how we believe in ourselves, how we move through the world, and how we assert our values in the world, essentially is when all that comes together in a cohesive way. And you can even go a step deeper and go brain coherence, heart coherence, physiological coherence. That's honoring self when you're being truthful with self. And you're honoring those tactical virtues. I think that's very, very important. Jack Donovan touches on that, and I expanded it in different ways because I see, yes, I acknowledge where we've come from a biological perspective, and our consciousness, I'm being assumptuous here because I wasn't around 200,000 years ago that I can remember, but from a place of assumption, from a place of understanding where we're at, I also know that our consciousness has evolved massively in how we see each other, how we relate to the unknown, the mystery, how we relate to each other. That's changed. So we have to take that into account. And so what relativity do these virtues have in today's world? And I believe what I've gone through is a big part of it. And so when we focus on that foundation as men, that helps us be good at being men. Then we can start thinking about what does it mean to be a good man? Because otherwise we're getting too much up here and not in here. We're so disconnected from our bodies. Here's the thing though, here's the paradox. With intention, we have to get out of our own way and somewhat out of our own bodies to get in the body. Let me explain what that means.
Wow.
Part of what we need to do, I'm spitting all over here, I'm spitting everywhere, but I'm wiping it off to my laptop. Part of what we need to do, I believe as men, is get back into our bodies and stop ignoring the pain or the trauma or the fear or those negative experiences that we've had or those painful experiences that we've had. But the thing is, we keep getting in our own way because the ego says, oh no, I'm not going there, that's too painful. Defense mechanism, compensatory strategy. I'm not going there. It's a maladaptive coping strategy because it's keeping us away from our truth. And so we have to get out of our body. In other words, get out of our own way so we can feel the body, feel what's going on, feel those feelings, and then become disembodied to become embodied, essentially. And then once we realize that it's safe to be in the body, we're less attached to the body. We realize that we're actually, I'm going to go on a very slight rant here, and this is from Advaita Vedanta, is that we realize that we're not actually our bodies, we're not our thoughts, we're not our emotions, we're nothing, we're something that's beyond that, and also that, and we're conscious, we're the observer of everything that's unraveling. And that's definitely another conversation, but we have to, as men, we've got to get back in the bodies. And the way we do that is we've got to get out of our own way. And so we have to be willing. Willingness comes back again. We have to be committed, right? And we have to be present. We have to be present to the pain and the fear that's unraveling itself.
Wow. Thank you. Love hearts, please. That was gold, brother. Yeah, wow. Just going to take that in for a sec. Amazing. Cool. And yeah, there was another question here, and it was around, so you've done a lot of work with men, right? You've been working with them for 19 years now, I believe you said, all different
various
walks
ways.
of life. Yeah, all different various ways. Yeah. And what do you feel has been like the most kind of dark and difficult thing that you've had to take someone through, and what has been the positive consequences for that?
In the beginning, when I was but I was ignorant, I didn't really have faith in what I was doing, I didn't believe in myself, I didn't really know too much what I was doing, but I was still called to the work. It was very confronting for me, and because I hadn't dealt with my stuff. And that's why it was so confronting. It was bringing up a lot of pain in me. And what I realized of late is that I've dealt with so much of my own pains that I feel more connected to when I'm doing the work with men. And so to answer your question, it's very similar to me. It's pulling out the shame in them. It's letting them come face to face with that. You know, brother, I was at a retreat. I facilitated a men's convergence. There were 111 men there. I was one of the facilitators. Brother, you know, there's so much sexual abuse in the world. As an example, there were so many men that had been sexually abused. And that's tough to see, man. It's tough to see that level of trust being shattered in a man, in any human being, to be honest with you, really. You know, when 30-40% of the room is putting their hand up saying, I've been sexually abused. I mean, that's 30-40% too much. You know? And you know, we say, the statistics say it's 20-30% for men, for boys, and 50% for women. It's probably more like 50% for men and 90% for women. It's horrible, brother. And so taking people to that place where they have to deal with that, that's been a lot of that's painful. But again, I don't feel sorry for them. I don't feel sympathy. I feel empathy and compassion, and I stay in that place of presence, and I honor them for doing the work and having the fucking courage to be there and really go deep into that. And the positive outcomes is that it's an access point for liberation, that deep shadow work, that somatic work that we take men through, that I take men through. It's liberation, brother. I mean, they feel liberated. They don't have to be themselves. They're not dictated by their past. Their present needn't be dictated by their past. Their past is a story that they don't need to keep rewriting and reliving and rereading. And that's the power, that's the liberation, man. When you see a man liberated from that because he's been screaming and crying, suppressed pain, visceral pain that he's had there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, is literally this fucking awakening, this exorcism taking place that's gone out of the body, and they feel free, and then they're just there, and they're breathing, and every exhale sinks them deeper into Mother Earth, and they feel that, and they say to themselves, I don't have to be my past anymore. And whilst there's more work to do, the access point, the door, the portal is open. And in that openness, brother, they bring themselves a new version of them to their families, to their lives, to their colleagues, to their friends, to their communities, to people that haven't even met yet. And yes, some of their families meet that with apprehension because it's different. Hey, you used to be an aggressive man. Why are you less aggressive now? I feel unsafe. And that's okay. And it takes time. That's the work. You've got to be consistent to be safe. And you've got to do the work and deeper into that and deeper into that. But the access, the liberation is there, man, as a starting point. And so I get great satisfaction out of seeing that in another man and really deeply inspired by men's commitment. Never, and it never will, I know that. And I don't want to mean to be absolute, but I do mean to be absolute. I will never cease to amaze me. It will never cease, not amaze me, like shock me, but it will never cease to inspire me. The deep work that people go to, women, men, and every gender in between, it doesn't matter.
Wow. I can feel your heart, feel your passion, brother. It's so inspiring. And yeah, I'm really excited to see more brothers and interview more men like yourself. Like it's so inspiring to see. And I love what you're doing, and please keep doing what you're doing. It's incredible. Felt every bit of that. Awesome. So there's another question, if there is any other questions for anyone who's watching now. And here's a question. Cool. So I got a question from Shana. It says, how would you suggest a conscious woman understanding the internal work, approaching her partner about him using constant numbing coping mechanisms and starting his awareness about this great work you do? I live in the internal work environment, but when it comes from me, it's on deaf ears.
Yeah.
But the suppression he has used to deal is all he feels, is all he is capable of dealing.
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, is it Shana?
Shana, yeah.
Shana, I very much honor you for loving and caring about your partner and your man and being there and really sincerely wanting to help him and serve him in that way. Tremendous honor and gratitude. I would not be where I am today was it not for the compassion and the non-judgment of the feminine in my life. Particularly, there are a few different women and my beautiful fiance now that has met me in so much non-judgment and compassion over the relatively short time that we've been together. Really beautiful. So thank you for being that woman in the world and being that shining feminine in the world. The reality is that he's in a lot of pain. If he's numbing, we all are. When we numb and when we're suppressing and avoiding, we're in a lot of pain, or at least perceived pain. And the magnitude of that really varies on each individual, the way we interpret the magnitude of that. And pushing it is only going to push him away, as you know, hence the nature of your question. So my suggestion would be, and my invitation to you would be, to come at it from a non-attached way. And you could say, hey, I listened to this great interview today, thought you might like it, here you go, that's it. And that's literally it. It's a suggestion. It's coming from a passive place, it's coming from a intentional place, but also a non-attached place. You're not attached whether he watches it or not. Of course, at some point, you will have to make a decision that if his values and the way he's behaving in the relationship doesn't align with you anymore, then you may have to make a choice about what your actions are in that. And in the interim, it's meeting him with compassion, but you're also not his caretaker and you're also not his mother. Let me be very clear on that. So don't move into that. Men don't want to date their mothers at all in any capacity, but they do want that queen energy. They want that motherly love, but they don't want their mothers. And so it's a fine line that you're treading. It's not an easy conversation. Another thing that you could do, another action that you could take, again, is invite him to places, to whether it be a meditation, whether it be a yoga. Say, hey, I'm going to do this yoga. I'm going to do this training. I'm going to do this F45 training. I don't know what your circumstances are. I'm giving you some basic examples, but would you like to come with me? I'd really love it if you came with me. It makes me feel so good when we do things together. I really appreciate it when you're there with me, supporting me, and I can support you. And it's just going to be have some fun. Let's try new things. And you can introduce him to spirituality or health and wellness or whatever it may be in that way. But, saying, hey, I don't want you to drink this weekend, or how about you drink 50% less than you normally drink? That's probably not going to go down very well. It would be lovely if you did that. And when people arrive to conclusions on their own accord, that's more empowered and powerful. So there are a couple of the suggestions that I would make. And just if you can be non-attached, and if you're clear that you do care for him and that there is still sustainability and longevity in the relationship, then continue this path. If not, then that's another conversation, another set of questions.
Wow. Thank you, brother. And I hope that answers your question, Shana. And there's been another comment from Alan, which is we become codependent on each other. And what comes to mind is that I've been listening to Stephen Covey. You've heard of his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks about codependency, independency, and interdependency. Yeah. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Like the differences between the three and how it can best work in a relationship kind of thing.
Yeah. Interdependence is the ideal if it's executed in a healthy way. Codependence and independence. So there's an element of independence that's required in interdependence, healthy independence though, not hyper independence or hyper selfish independence. And so that's required in interdependence. Codependency, the easiest way to put it is that we derive our sense of self and our value from external means. And so how others perceive us, how they see us, how they treat us, how they love us, how they give to us, how they receive from us, how they do everything, we wait on them with bated breath. And we're in an extreme where our sense of self, our happiness is based on them. It's based on how they treat us, what they say to us, how they see us, how they write, how they live, how they interact with others, everything. So our happiness essentially is externalized. Our sense of well-being or sense of self is externalized, and that's codependent. And that codependency is very common. I was in a codependent relationship for so long. There are still elements of my relationship with my fiance where we're very healthy, where we both exhibit codependent behaviors sometimes, but we catch ourselves and we break those patterns. Because she grew up in codependence, I grew up in codependence. Last year when I was going through some deep somatic healing with her, I was massively codependent. My little boy came out, I got so scared, I was so broken down, I was so raw, I was losing my mind, literally. I went into my default codependent. I was relying on her to fix me, to heal me, to take me out of this mess, to take me out of the pain. It doesn't work like that. We got through it. It's all good. But that's codependent. And so codependence is unhealthy because we're never happy. We're never happy because we can't control what other people do and say. To an extent, maybe we can influence it. If we're manipulative, we can control it, but then that's another kettle of fish. That's unhealthy. We don't want that. And so independence is, well, I don't need anyone. I got me, what do I need? That's not realistic and it's not viable. We're pro-social beings, and anyone that thinks it's the dark side of the self-love movement in neo-spirituality. It's like, well, love yourself and only yourself, and no and yes. Yes, love yourself. Yes, feel sovereignty within you. Yes, feel love and appreciation within you, and go give it to someone else. Go receive it from someone else. They're mirrors for you to go deeper into yourself anyway. It's reciprocal. And interdependence is this beautiful harmony where people are working cohesively. They have a set of values, goals, objectives, understandings that they're connected to, and they both pursue that with great efficacy. It's a beautiful thing.
Wow. Thank you, brother. Just always got the right thing to say, don't you?
Oh, not always. Oh, you got me on a good day today. No, definitely not always. We were talking about, I don't know, rocket science or some form of physics. I think I'd be stuck.
Well, in this particular topic, yeah, you've got to go on to it. Awesome, brother.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'd love to ask, and if there is any other questions here, please drop them in the comments, guys.
I thought there was a couple there that came up. I thought I saw one on conscious relationships. I could be wrong, but if it was a statement or a comment.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. So from Connie, do you have any suggestions on calling in a conscious partner?
Yeah, that's great.
Of course
It's a
he
beautiful
does.
question. That's a beautiful. I hope so. That's a beautiful question. That's a really beautiful question. Calling in a conscious partner. Well, the first thing I would say is, have you created space in your life to call in a conscious partner? Or have you created space in your life to call in and attract and magnetize and experience what you really want? For example, if you're working 15 hours a day because you're putting all your time into that, it's not wrong or right. Is there space really for a partner in your life? How can you can call in all you want, you can manifest and you can say, I will have a partner today, I am with my partner today, whatever it may be. But if you're not creating space in your life, literal space in your life, are you going to be able to call in the partner? I think this is a really cool trick. Is maybe once or twice a week, take a morning off or get up early and go walk on the beach. And envision yourself doing that with your partner. And so you're literally creating space in your world to go for a walk on the beach twice a week with your partner. Or maybe once a week you take yourself on date night. Now this isn't woo-woo spirituality. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Okay, and it's not me sitting on the fence here, because I believe in the esoteric, I believe in the unknown and the unseen. And I believe in energy that we can't directly see and feel, and it's not tangible, the intangible, the immaterial. But as our good friend Joe Dispenza says, bring your future into the now. Feel it, be it. Go take yourself on a date night, take yourself out to dinner, take yourself out to a movie, whatever it is that maybe it's an art show, an art exhibition, or whatever it is that you enjoy. Take yourself to the library and envision, feel yourself being there with your beloved. Awesome. As Connie says, I do date nights. I love that. That's just one example, right? Beautiful. Getting to know you and your values. Like, what do you really, what do you love being in the world? Understanding that, knowing that, feeling that, being that. What do you want from your partner as well, which is essentially a reflection of what you need to be in the relationship in order to magnetize that type of man. That's another key point as well. I'm assuming it's a man, it could be a woman, it doesn't really matter, but any person that you want to bring into your life. And so when you're calling in that conscious partner, what you're essentially saying is, I want someone to meet me where I'm at. I want someone to meet my values, to meet what I'm in alignment with. And so you need to then know, who do you need to be in order to attract that person in your life? Talk to your partner regularly. When maybe you're going down to Whole Foods, or you're going down to, I'm really American now, I'm talking about Whole Foods. It's the supermarket here. You're going down the supermarket, Woolworths, Coles, wherever you're going. And you're saying, oh, I wonder if you're here today. Have a chat, have a conversation with that person. Go drop into it, really drop into it, and be patient. Be patient. And the last thing I'll say on that, and I can speak a lot to this, but the last thing I'll say that is, do your own work. Do your shadow work, go deep into that, explore your own self. Don't be afraid to gently push on those pain points within you, whatever they may be, and celebrate yourself as well. Because if you're not appreciating and celebrating you, then no one else will. Not to the extent that you really want anyway.
Thank you, brother. And yeah, ultimately what's came through for me there too is like, be that which you wish to attract, like,
yep.
you can't attract the partner of your dreams unless you're already giving yourself those things that this partner would give to you firstly. Shana says, oh my God, I love Whole Foods.
It's quality. And even in Australia.
Cool. Yeah, another question, which is my favorite question I always ask at the end of the interview, and I particularly, because of your field and the work with men that you've done, I'd love to direct it at that. But if you could, just close down your eyes for a moment and just taking a few deep breaths into the heart. And everyone tuning in as well, you can do so the same. And just allowing, as you breathe into the heart, for this message to come through, holding space for Stefanos. Stefanos, as you breathe into the heart space, tuning into the resonance of the heart. And what is the message that is deep within your heart that you've learned over your journey and experiences over all time working with men specifically, that you feel is of utmost importance to share?
Men, like every human being, are such beautiful beings. They are such connected, whole, beautiful beings. And they want to be seen and they desire intimacy just like every single one of us. They wish to be seen and heard and known for who they are. They wish to be understood. And they wish to connect to the parts of themselves that can be more freeing, can be more free in the world, that is not judged and ridiculed and rejected and humiliated and abandoned. The core woundings of men particularly. And what I've found is that all human beings just want that. And so when we demonize men, we just put them back into a pigeonhole and a place and a rotting cell that makes it more difficult for them to escape out of. And they perpetuate the same behavior because it's familiar. That was me for so long. And again, I go back to that beautiful divine feminine meeting me with compassion and non-judgment. That was very liberating for me, extremely liberating. All men are good men.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bella.
Thank you.
And yeah, for now, I'd love to open up space for you to share, what's in creation for you now, what really inspires you, how can people get in touch with you, some of the projects that you're working on, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'll start off with my virtual online 8-week program for men, Reclaim Your Kingdom. That commences mid-July, so reclaimyourkingdom.com. If you go there now, you'll see another version of Reclaim Your Kingdom, which is actually a more advanced version, which is a 4-month intensive. But either way, the new information will be out in the next few weeks, the next couple of weeks for Reclaim Your Kingdom. And that's epic, man. I'm in the middle of one now. We're at week 7 of 12 of this particular iteration. And it's just, the men just show up and it's just, power, man. So good. It's such a blessing to be able to serve in that way. Myself and my beautiful fiance, we have 3 one-day experiential love events coming up in LA in August, London in October, beginning of October, and San Diego at the beginning of November. And that's all about love to self, romantic love, whether you're calling it in or whether you're in partnership, and love to higher source as well, which is really, really beautiful. And we'll be in Australia in December. So we're probably actually going to run an event in December as well in Oz. Yeah. So very excited about that. Yeah, probably on the East Coast. Yeah, I'd say definitely on the East Coast, and maybe on the West as well. But yeah, we'll be running an event there at some point too. So we'll get together with that. I mean, we're running a retreat in Hawaii. Christine and I are running a retreat in Hawaii. And you can go to christinehassler.com/retreat if you're interested in that, of course. Yeah, and that's going to be an epic deep dive. That's open to everyone, men, women, couples, singles, the whole lot. So that's exciting. So, and I've got a number of other things that are going on. There's a lot of work going into the new Reclaim Your Kingdom model and the gifts that I'm giving with that. I'm creating a lot of content around that at the moment. And so that I'm just giving. I just want to give a great deal. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. I'm also preparing for a wedding at the end of the year as well. So there's a lot going on. Yeah.
Wow, brother. Excited. I'd love to know more about the men's program as well. To see what you plan for that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Reclaimyourkingdom.com. Yeah, I'll put I'll write a comment. I'll put it in here.
No worries. There's one more question if you have time for it.
I've got a minute. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So it's quite a long one. It's from Derek Lamont Beverly, and it says, when someone is physically/mentally ill, there are hospitals and/or relatively spiritual resources, books, meditations, advisors. What advice will you share in order for us to do our own darker work without fear, starting from a place of beginning, if you will, ready, pre-equipped with a newly discovered courage and confidence? Explain how to beat honor claiming by demonstration and ownership of the challenge. I think this is like a 3-part question.
I think I understand the gist of the question thus far.
Yeah.
So what I would say to that, I believe what the question is asking, and I can be corrected, no problem, is, what advice can you give someone that is on a journey of exploring themselves, discovering themselves, and that's wanting to do some deeper shadow work into the aspects of self that are unknown, and how can they do that on their own? And so the immediate response to that is caution doing it on your own. Like really caution doing it on your own. The second part to that is there are safe ways to do it on your own, absolutely. And again, I'll just go back to keeping it very simple, very tangible. Get in the physical body. Move your body, train your body, exercise your body, take your body to the edge in terms of physical, whether it be lifting weights, yoga, running, whatever it may be. But get in your body, embody. I would also then look at doing some breath work, because breath work you can turn on and off as you want to. And there's so many types of breath work. There's biodynamic, there's holotropic, there's just so many different types. There's more passive types of breath work. I would begin with that first. So ease in, slow exposure, titration, pendulation when we're coming into the brain doing new things. But breath work and movement is really, really effective in terms of exploring implicitly aspects of yourself. So you don't have to put any verbiage to it or intellect to it and say, well, why am I feeling this in my body? This feels strange. Don't try and understand it. But again, I caution against doing deeper shadow work on your own. I really suggest finding a group of people or a facilitator, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a breathwork practitioner, whether it's a shaman, whether it's a spiritual healer, whether it's a psychologist, whatever it may be, a master, a teacher, really go into a group. There's power in that. There's a lot of power in that where people come to it with an intention together in a group to want to shift energy. In a safe environment, it can be really healthy.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. I think that summed up that question quite well. You could have a look over the comments if there's about 100-word question. So if you feel to have a read of that and clear anything up afterwards, I'd invite that, welcome that.
Of course.
But yeah, I think that's about it. So many thank yous. Thank you. Amazing video, guys. Awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate you. And if these messages do resonate with you or you feel could really benefit someone else in your life, please share these videos and this video. And yeah, I really appreciate your time, Stefanos. It was amazing. Everything that you said was just gold. And yeah, I really appreciate the connection and love to stay in touch. And
please
let us know when you come to Australia.
Yeah, Australia, mate. Absolutely, my man. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys. Thank you again, Stefanos. Much love. Love you, brother.
Thank you. Much love to you too. Thank you.
See you guys.